Have you ever wondered why you're so deeply tired, even when nothing seems wrong? Not the tiredness of the body, but the exhaustion of always fighting against life, against time, against yourself. You may not fully realize it, but there's a quiet, invisible fatigue that comes from constantly trying to control everything. You pressure yourself endlessly to be more productive, more focused, more positive, more in control. You force yourself to make decisions you don't believe in, to stay in relationships that no longer serve you, to follow routines that feel increasingly hollow. And the harder you try, the more life seems to slip away, like water through your hands, like sand, like time, like yourself. This is where a powerful principle begins to shift everything. Wu Wei, an ancient Taoist concept beautifully translated by Alan Watts as acting without forcing, but don't confuse it with laziness. Wu Wei is not passivity. It's not surrendering in weakness. It's one of the most profound forms of wisdom and courage. It's the ability to move in rhythm with life instead of against it, to act in harmony with the natural flow of things. Think of the dancer, not fighting the music, but allowing it to guide their body. Think of the surfer, not conquering the wave, but riding it, moment by moment. Now ask yourself honestly, how often do you force things that aren't ready? How often do you blame yourself for not controlling what was never yours to control? How many choices have you made not from love, but from fear? Fear of loss, fear of weakness, fear of not being enough. The truth is, we've been trained to go against life's natural current. From childhood, we were told that success demands effort, discipline, grit, even when every cell in your body whispers, "Stop." And so we grow into anxious, disconnected adults, detached from our inner rhythm, never taught how to trust, how to listen, how to let go. But Wu Wei is not doing nothing. It's doing with presence, with lightness, with respect for timing. It's the shift from being the exhausted rower fighting upstream to becoming the wise sailor who adjusts the sails and lets the wind lead the way. Alan Watts taught that when you stop forcing life, something miraculous begins to happen. The right door opens. The right moment reveals itself. The right answer arrives, not because you chased it down with intensity, but because you allowed space for it to emerge. So maybe, if you're here now, if you're still listening, it's not by chance. Maybe you're already tired of the struggle. Maybe something inside you already knows forcing isn't working. And maybe what you truly seek is a quieter, simpler, more authentic way of being. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why Wu Wei isn't just a poetic idea. It's a practice, a perspective, a shift that can bring back what all the forcing has failed to give you: peace. Not the kind sold in motivational slogans, but real peace. The kind that arises when you finally align with what is, with who you are, with what life has been whispering to you all along. So take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts soften, because the journey truly begins here. To grasp the essence of Wu Wei, we have to go beyond poetic phrases and surface-level calm. We must return to its roots, Taoism and Zen. And here, I invite you to do something radical. Forget everything you've been taught about philosophy. Forget the idea that it's just a system of abstract ideas, something to memorize and recite. Tao and Zen are not meant to be understood with the mind alone. They are not intellectual puzzles to be solved. They are experiences, felt through the body, lived through presence, realized in the silent pulse of existence moving through you. The Tao, literally translated as the way, is not a theory. It is not a rigid system of beliefs. The Tao is the invisible flow that moves all things, the growth of trees, the rhythm of the seasons, the turning of joy into sorrow, and sorrow back into peace, the cycle of life and death. It is a natural intelligence that quietly governs everything, beyond our logic, beyond our control. Lao Tzu, the Taoist sage, once said, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao." Why? Because the moment you try to define life with words, life has already changed. The Tao is like the wind. You can feel it, you can ride it, but you can never hold it in your hand. Zen was born from this same insight. When Buddhism met Taoism in ancient China, the result was a tradition even more uncompromising: Zen. Zen does not try to explain reality. It tries to tear down everything that blocks you from experiencing it directly. There are no creeds, no doctrines, no belief systems. Only one demand: be present, completely, fully, in your breath, in your walk, in your gaze, in your silence. Both Taoism and Zen speak the same unsettling truth. You are not in control. You never were. And it is your desperate attempt to control life that separates you from living it. But they don't offer escapism. They offer something far more radical: reconciliation. A return to the natural trust you once had, maybe as a child, before you were taught to fear falling, before shame replaced curiosity, before success replaced sincerity. But this is where many modern minds get lost, because these teachings, born in cultures so different from our own, can feel distant, almost alien. We, in the West, have been shaped by reason, by logic, by speed, by measurable outcomes. And that's exactly why a bridge was needed, a translator of wisdom between two worlds. Enter Alan Watts. In the next chapter, you'll meet the man who brought the East to the West. Not as a dry scholar, not as a missionary, but as a philosophical alchemist who could translate not just the words, but the soul of Tao and Zen. He showed us that these aren't exotic luxuries. They are essential, especially now in a world that feels more fragmented than ever. So prepare to meet the man who opened those doors for the West, and who might just open a new one within you. And if what you're hearing resonates, click that subscribe button to stay with us. Thank you for supporting this space of reflection and depth. Now imagine a time, not long ago, when words like Tao, Zen, Wu Wei, or meditation were treated with suspicion, seen as strange ideas from distant lands, irrelevant to modern life. It was into this world that Alan Watts emerged, not as an academic, not as a preacher, but as a true alchemist of ideas. A man who didn't just translate philosophy, he made it breathe. He reached people who didn't even realize they were suffering. Souls numbed by speed, starving for stillness. And that's exactly where we'll go next. Alan Watts was never just an academic trapped in towers of theory. He was something far more unsettling. A provocative thinker, a relentless challenger of Western dogmas, a man unafraid to question everything we're told is certain. He understood that the real barrier to grasping Tao and Zen wasn't cultural. It wasn't about East or West. It was fear. The fear that grips the modern mind, trained in the Cartesian tradition. The fear of letting go, of surrendering control, of giving up the illusion that we can fully command life. Watts didn't try to convert people. He didn't preach. He didn't seek followers. He sought freedom. Freedom from dogma. from obsessive goal setting, from the weight of achievement, from the constant anxiety of not being enough. He believed that the peace we long for, the fulfillment we chase, isn't found in the heroic struggle to master life. It's found in the quiet, radical act of allowing life to simply be. And he conveyed this message not with heaviness, but with a kind of luminous ease. His lectures felt like conversations with a wise friend, not a lecture from a pedestal, but a story from the heart of experience. Alan Watts didn't give answers. He tore the questions apart. He stripped away our mental masks and gently invited us to meet ourselves in the silence beneath our concepts. He knew Tao and Zen defied logic, so he used imagery instead. He told stories. He painted with metaphors. He spoke of rivers and oceans, of sailors and wind, of dancers and rhythms. He reminded us, life is like music. Its beauty isn't in reaching the final note, but in dancing to each moment along the way. And that's exactly what we forget. We rush to finish the song. We race toward outcomes. We miss the melody entirely. But life was never a race. It was always a dance. And Wu Wei, the art of not forcing, is the music that's been playing all along. We simply forgot how to listen. Alan Watts challenged an entire generation to question what it means to live well. He saw that the more we tried to win at life, the more we guaranteed we would lose it. His voice still echoes today because he didn't just speak of ancient wisdom. He spoke of modern wounds, the quiet loneliness we carry, the anxiety beneath our smiles, the disconnection from the present moment. But Watts also warned, knowing these truths in your head is not enough. You can quote Wu Wei, you can understand Taoism, but if you still paddle against the current in practice, you've missed the point entirely. And so, he gave us a metaphor, a powerful one, the image of the river. This is where we go next. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a vast river, strong, ancient, carrying with it stones, leaves, fallen trees, and everything in its path. Now imagine a person caught in it, thrashing against the current. Every stroke is a struggle. Every motion leads nowhere. Their body tires. Muscles seize, the mind panics, and the more they fight, the further they drift from any real chance at peace. This, Watts said, is human suffering. The river isn't the problem. It just flows. The pain comes from the fight, from the resistance, because suffering rarely comes from the event itself. It comes from our refusal to let go. You lose a job, a relationship ends, a plan unravels, and instead of flowing with what's already changed, you cling to the past. And the harder you cling, the deeper you drown. You try to hold on to what's already slipping through your fingers. Like water cupped in your hands, no matter how tightly you grasp, it escapes. And that's where Alan Watts brought in the wisdom of the river. Life has its own rhythm, its own intelligence, its own flow. You don't need to push it. You don't need to conquer it. You simply need to trust it. This isn't about passivity. It's not surrendering to fate like a victim. It's about aligning with a force that's always been bigger than you, but also part of you. Like a surfer doesn't fight the wave, but feels its rise, its pull, and moves with it in harmony. When you resist reality, you create friction, not just with the world, but within yourself. That resistance builds up. It settles in your muscles. It clouds your mind. It wounds your spirit. You begin to live as if life is a battlefield, always pushing, always tense, always one step away from collapse. And what comes next is predictable. Chronic anxiety, deep frustration, resentment toward others, and a gnawing sense of helplessness. The cruelest part, somewhere inside, you know you're drowning, but your fear of releasing control is greater than your fear of continuing to suffer. This is where the river metaphor becomes more than just a beautiful idea. It becomes a lifeline because it carries within it a silent promise. There is another way to live, a way that doesn't demand constant effort, a way where letting go doesn't mean defeat. It means discovery. When you stop resisting, you realize that the river isn't trying to drown you. It's trying to carry you to places your intellect could never design, to experiences your plans would never allow. But to trust that journey takes courage, not the kind of courage we're usually taught, but the courage to let go, to step into the unknown, to release the illusion of safety that control promises. And that courage is not a luxury. It's not some spiritual daydream. It is an urgent necessity in today's world, a world that teaches us from childhood to fight, to dominate, to outperform, no matter the cost. In the next part, we'll uncover how this Western mindset has created an invisible prison, a prison made not of walls, but of beliefs, beliefs that are slowly draining us from within. Because the truth is, you've been trained to think that everything meaningful must be earned through pain, through struggle, through control. Since childhood, you've been told, never give up. Winners don't quit. The world belongs to the strong. You grew up internalizing the idea that if you weren't constantly planning, pushing, fixing, or hustling, then something terrible would happen. But perhaps you haven't yet noticed the price of this belief system. It has built a quiet prison inside you, a prison of tension disguised as ambition, of fear dressed up as discipline, of anxiety painted in the colors of drive and success. Alan Watts saw this with piercing clarity. He recognized that Western culture, in worshiping control and relentless effort, has crafted a civilization of neurosis. People sprint endlessly without knowing where they're going. Doing has become more important than being. And stillness? It's treated as a threat, a problem to fix, a weakness to be eliminated. We live in societies addicted to excess productivity, excess information, excess ambition. And in this race to dominate life, we've forgotten how to live it. And so, slowly, you begin to drift away from yourself, not in some dramatic collapse, but in subtle, daily ways, until one day you feel like a stranger in your own life. Have you ever noticed it? That quiet, haunting sensation where everything on the surface looks right. You've studied, you've worked, you're productive, and yet there's a heaviness, an emptiness, as if something essential is missing. That something is your connection to the natural rhythm of life, to the Tao, that which cannot be forced, only followed. But the modern mind, trained in control, refuses to accept this. It dreads the unpredictable. It fears the unknown. It wants certainty at any cost. And so it builds fortresses of routine, rigid goals, tight schedules, exhausting strategies, all designed to eliminate uncertainty. But here's the truth. Uncertainty isn't a flaw. It's the essence of life. Mystery is not a threat. It's the very source of wonder. And when we try to remove all unpredictability, we kill the magic. We suffocate spontaneity. We flatten the beauty of being alive. Alan Watts warned us of this exact danger. He said, "The more we try to control life, the more we separate ourselves from it. It's like trying to preserve the fragrance of a flower by locking it in an airtight vault. You might keep the form, but you lose the soul, and what's left is a life that looks organized but feels mechanical, cold, lifeless, where even your emotions must be scheduled, your relationships optimized, your dreams micromanaged like tasks in a project plan. But there is another way, a path back to ease, a return to simplicity, a way to live lightly, not by abandoning your responsibilities, but by dropping the illusion of control that was never real to begin with. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. How to actually apply Wu Wei in the chaos of modern life. A world obsessed with speed, yet starved for stillness. You'll discover that doing less is not laziness. It's wisdom. That acting with less force can take you farther than all the pressure you've ever applied. And if this resonates with you, you may find even deeper insight in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It unpacks Jung's core teachings and offers tools to help you better understand yourself. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below. Now back to the essential question. Talking about Wu Wei, in theory, is poetic, but how do we actually live it? How do we move with the flow in a world that bombards us daily with deadlines, alerts, notifications, and the endless need to prove ourselves? This is where things get real. And no, there's no easy formula. It requires something rare, courage. Not the courage to fight harder, but the courage to see differently, to redefine what it means to act wisely, to live well. Applying Wu Wei doesn't mean quitting your job or running off to meditate in the mountains. That's the misconception. People hear non-effort and think apathy. They confuse peace with passivity. But Wu Wei is not doing nothing. It's doing from a different center. A place of attention, awareness, alignment. It's about acting not from fear, not from pressure, not from the ego's obsession with control, but from the truth of the present moment. It begins with humility, with the realization that you don't control the universe, that greater forces are always at play, and your power lies not in resisting them, but in tuning into them. Listening, feeling, responding with flow. This requires slowing down, breathing, observing before reacting, pausing instead of panicking, not out of laziness, but out of wisdom. Because only in that stillness can you begin to act with true intelligence, in harmony with what matters most. In daily life, Wu Wei is not a lofty ideal. It's a choice, a quiet, revolutionary choice. It's choosing quality over quantity, depth over speed, stillness over noise. It's knowing that sometimes the most powerful action is simply the decision to pause, to say no to demands, to distractions, to obligations that exist only to feed an ego that's starving for external approval. It's turning down the volume of the world so you can finally hear the whisper within you. The one that has always been there, software persistent, waiting for you to stop long enough to listen. Practicing Wu Wei also means learning to trust life's natural rhythms. There is a time for action, and a time for rest, a time for blooming, and a time for retreat. But our culture, obsessed with endless productivity, has taught us that stopping means failure. That rest is weakness, that stillness is dangerous. Alan Watts reminds us, even winter has purpose. And sometimes the most meaningful progress you can make is to simply allow yourself to be exactly where you are, without rushing into the next chapter. To live with Wu Wei in this world is an act of conscious rebellion. It's swimming against the current, not to outperform others, but to find yourself again. It's rejecting the scarcity-driven belief that you are never enough, never fast enough, never doing enough, and reconnecting with the truth of abundance. that your being, in and of itself, is already whole. But be warned, this path requires vigilance, because the old conditioning, the voices of control, speed, and pressure will always try to pull you back. They'll whisper, "You're falling behind. You need to do more. You can't let go now." And in those moments, you'll face your true choice. Will you return to the cycle of resistance, or will you trust the flow of the Tao? That choice, quiet, subtle, internal, is where real transformation begins. And that's what we explore next. The moment you stop forcing and everything in your life begins to shift. Get ready to understand the quiet power of conscious surrender, the paradox where, by letting go, you finally become free. Because there comes a point in every life when you must decide, will you keep swimming upstream until your soul is worn thin, or will you finally release the struggle? And remember that life is not a war to be won, but a mystery to be lived. Alan Watts taught us, real transformation doesn't come when you push harder. It comes when you stop resisting what has already begun to emerge inside you. When you stop forcing, you create space. Space for life to surprise you, for new possibilities to unfold, ones you never could have planned. You make space to feel again, to breathe again, to hear the quiet rhythm of the Tao that has been guiding you all along. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's living in such deep harmony with life that your actions flow naturally, without pressure, without fear, without ego. It's shifting from desperate manager to conscious participant in the infinite dance of life. And yes, this requires practice, vigilance, courage, the courage to face your old patterns, the courage to hear your fears and not follow them. But now you know. Now you can choose. So before you leave this video, I want to ask you something. Where in your life are you forcing right now? Where are you swimming against the current? Where are you gripping so tightly that all you're doing is exhausting yourself? Comment below. Even just writing it, naming it, is a radical act of awareness. And if something in you stirred while listening, if something cracked open, don't stop here. The next video is more than just the next step. It's the continuation of this journey you've already begun. It's not more content. It's a deeper opening, a further unfolding into presence, clarity, lightness. So keep going, because your transformation is already in motion, and it deserves to be lived fully. I'll see you there.